All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So today's already been pretty crazy, right? With all of the different roster moves that teams are making, trimming down, going from, 90 to 53. So a lot of stuff is going down, right? A lot of news and it's going to continue breaking throughout the day. And then, of course, we have the whole, the waiver claims, and then we have practice squads and whatnot to kind of get into over the next, I want to say, day or so. Day and a half. So the Jets have already made a bunch of moves, but in this one, I want to talk about three guys that stand out to me that I feel like the Jets could potentially look into, could make some sense. Not necessarily saying that these are, long-term answers here, or, we need, I'm pounding my fist on the table, get these guys in the building and sign them to multi-year deals or anything like that. But I'm thinking, okay, for depth purposes, for upside purposes, for practice squad purposes, and potentially even team need, I think the Jets should look into these three players. But really, first, before we dive into it, we had some news come out about Von Miller. I don't know, like 5-10 minutes ago here. It's looking like the Bills are going to be starting out the season with him on the PUP list. In other words, he's going to be missing the first 4 games of the season, and they play the Jets in week 1. So from an odds perspective, yeah, that definitely helps the Jets, especially considering that offensive line is the weak link of the offense overall. So, and I believe they also play the Dolphins and the Raiders at some point within the first 4 weeks. So it is major news here for the Bills. Now, I don't think they're going to fall apart defensively. Obviously missed so much time for them last season, and they were still a really productive unit. And you also have to factor in their, additions on the defensive line, like Poona Ford and Leonard Floyd off the edge. So I think the Bills will be fine, but it does help the Jets in that, in that regard. So let's quickly talk about some players here. And we've seen some big name guys get released. I think Roby just got cut a few minutes ago here from the New Orleans Saints. I mean, man, like that's a good player to be on the open market at this point in time. Obviously the Jets, I don't know how much interest there's going to be, given that we already pretty much have our starting 3 spots locked down. But in any case, the first player I really want to, highlight here is wide receiver David Stills, who's just released from the Giants, I want to say 45 minutes ago here. He's a big body guy, 6'3". I loved him at West Virginia, highly productive back in college. Spent some time with the Bills, spent some time with the Giants, the past 2 seasons with the Giants, in fact. And, this isn't just it's funny because, he actually looked really good against the Jets, led the Giants in both catches and receiving yards in that final preseason game. I'm not just saying it because of that. But I mean, I think when we look at Corey Davis's sudden retirement, when we're looking at practice squad, I think David Stills is a guy who, every year in the preseason, he looks good. And, it just comes down to, I know the Jets have young wide receivers, but again, if we need emergency situation here, if, we have 2 guys go down with injury, in season, essentially, I'd like to have young guys waiting in the wings to take over in the event of injury, in the event of, an expiring contract or something like that. But Stills is a guy who I feel like has done enough in preseason to where I can sit here and say, hey, you know what? He does have an upside. He does have some likable traits here. And for the Jets right now, it's like, I'm thinking, hey, if David Stills makes the practice squad, I'm totally fine with that. And this is, of course, under the assumption that Xavier Gipson and Jason Brownlee make the 53. Although there is a rumor that Brownlee made the 53 roster. It came out yesterday. So I like David Stills a lot. There's another wide receiver that was just released from Buffalo, Andy Isabella. Although I do feel like he might be more of a fit for like the Mike LaFleur style of Jets offense. And obviously he's no longer here. So, Isabella's a guy who I liked at UMass. I remember when he was coming out, there was a lot of buzz, a lot of hype around, what he was able to do back in college and kind of how he projected to the next level. As that slot, that shifty slot wide receiver with good hands. It just hasn't really worked out in Arizona and, obviously Buffalo here. Now, another interesting player here that I've had my eye on really since news broke is former 3rd-round pick back in 2021 from the Atlanta Falcons, offensive lineman, guard/tackle Jalen Mayfield. Now, I'm not sitting here saying Mayfield is an upgrade over what we currently have. I'm not saying that, if the Jets bring him in, he's instantly going to shoot up the depth chart and, become a starter. I'm not saying that. But when I look at practice squad players or depth pieces, I feel like Jalen Mayfield is extremely interesting. And it's weird. You're thinking like, okay, 2021 third round pick, and he's already being released on his rookie contract. In other words, he's not getting paid a lot. Why are the Falcons giving up on him already? Well, to be fair, he hasn't played well. He's allowed a lot of sacks. He's bounced around on different positions, really trying to find a home on the Falcons offensive line. It just hasn't really worked out. But here's my point. He's so young. He's 23 years old. And what was his back at Michigan? And by the way, when he was drafted in the third round, that's where he was projected to go. It's not like the Falcons reached on him and everybody's freaking out. What are they doing? He should have been undrafted or something like that. He was expected to go in round 3. It's not like the Atlanta Falcons made this catastrophic mistake where they were trying to outsmart everybody. No, he was projected to go there. His biggest knock was college experience, playing experience. Mayfield was a guy who ideally you would want on the bench for a year. Coming out of Michigan, I believe he only played in 15 games. He had 15 starts in college. Granted, he looked great in those starts at right tackle for the Wolverines, but that was his biggest thing. He just doesn't have a lot of experience. He's going to need time to grow, and the Falcons instantly threw him in the starting lineup at left guard, to start his rookie season. So obviously, it didn't work out, and he is now officially off the Falcons roster. A lot of people are saying he's a bust and whatnot. But I mean, man, you want to talk to me at least, right? From an outsider looking in, I think I'm looking at Jalen Mayfield. I'm going right back to his tape at Michigan. I'm asking Hackett. I'm asking Todd Downing and Keith Carter, hey, does this guy make some sense here? As a potential practice squad guy, maybe somebody we can stash on the bench for a year. And then maybe next training camp, all of a sudden we can have a guy who is feeling really comfortable within the offense, right? Because let's face it, Dwayne Brown, as solid as he is up there in age. This could be the last season of Dwayne Brown. Mekhi Becton, I feel like the future's still unknown there. I'm hoping he stays healthy and he's the team's long-term answer at right tackle. But I mean, even behind those guys, Billy Turner's on a 1-year contract. Max Mitchell, there's been some good stuff. There's been some bad stuff so far. So I think it's worth a waiver claim, in my opinion, from the Jets' perspective. And again, I'm not saying he's going to come in and start over Becton or anything like that. I'm viewing Mayfield as the guy who I want to keep on the bench for at least a season, unless, things go absolutely crazy. And it's like an emergency situation. You have to plug him into the starting lineup. So, let me know your thoughts down below. And Alex Leatherwood is out there, although I think at this point I would prefer Mayfield, positional versatility and whatnot. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Jets.